In this interview, I speak with Nicole. She's 28 years old, living in New York City. She works in retail brand and marketing strategy, and she shares what her career journey has looked like thus far. Let's get started.
Hi, Nicole. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm super excited to hear about your career in the retail space, this is specifically doing branding and marketing strategy. So welcome, and please tell me about yourself.
Yeah, hello, Bridget. Really nice to talk to you. Bridget and I go way back to the high school, middle school days.
Yes. Feeling old.
Yes, I know. When I was telling Bridget about my age, I'm now 28. It was hard to say. It was like 26, 25. I don't know.
Feel 18.
Yes, many people tell me I look 18, so there's that. But I live in New York City. After college, I did live in Boston for a few years and just moved back to New York, where I'm from, in the middle of the pandemic, so like October 2020. And I currently work at Macy's now as a senior influencer marketing strategy manager, working on our Style Crew program, which is essentially right now our employee-based influencer program, but we're looking to the future and what it will look like in the future, and I'm essentially a part of that, which has been really exciting. And I guess more about myself, I really love the retail industry. I played field hockey in college, so I love all sorts of sports. I'm a big Chiefs fan, go Chiefs. And I love dogs. Shout out to Bridget's dog, Peter, and my dog, Harry, all the great dogs out there. Yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, that's the essential part of you've got a career and now you can pay for the dogs.
Exactly. I know, not in New York, it's hard to have the dog. We watch my parents' dog, which is basically my dog.
Yeah, awesome. Well, coming from the marketing world as well, I know that there's never really a straight trajectory, especially with the evolution of social media and influencer marketing, which really wasn't a thing up until like 5-10 years ago. Maybe 10 might be stretching it. So can you tell me a little bit about what you studied in school and how that translated to earlier jobs and evolved into what you're doing now?
Yeah, so I started out at Cornell in their fashion management program, technically fiber science and apparel design, focused on management. So I actually did a lot of fiber science labs and studies while I was at Cornell, just because it was a requirement. Didn't necessarily like it, but it did teach me a lot about fibers and fabric.
Sounds intense.
Yes, those labs are very intense, but I definitely, you learn a lot about, the different properties, the different fabrics, and it really helped me in certain internships as well when I needed to identify different garments based on how they were described. So yeah, it ended up helping, but also was really like a business major there at Cornell. Did some marketing classes, communications classes. And then while I was at Cornell, I did a bunch of internships in the fashion industry because I originally wanted to be a fashion designer, loved art, was in a lot of the same art classes as Bridget and loved it. But we had a fashion design course in high school and I did it and I ruined a pair of shorts. And I'm a perfectionist and I was like, nope, this isn't for me. I'm going to be just ruining too many pairs of shorts in my life. I'm going to try the business side of fashion. So from there, I did like a summer college course at Cornell in business, and I loved it, Cornell Summer College. And from there, I was like, okay, let's try fashion and business. And Cornell had a program. So that's what I went into. And then I didn't know what area though. So I kind of just tried a bunch of different things. I wanted to try to stay on the more creative side just because that's what I loved. And I did product development, which is very design heavy at J. Mendel. Loved J. Mendel, didn't like the production side of things, too design heavy. I did an internship at Giorgio Armani in their internship program for wholesale. Worked with a lot of different department stores like Saks and Nordstrom and things like that. Wasn't totally into sales, but it was a fun internship. And then that same summer, I did an internship in PR, just wanted to try out everything, like internships to like completely try out different sectors of the industry, which I recommend to students now. But yeah, I did PR and learned essentially it's just very manual labor for a very low cost. And you're working very long hours for it. So I was like, this isn't for me. But again, it was fun. You know, you're sending out like different like beautiful gowns for like the cover of Vogue or, you know, the cover of Cosmo. Like it was fun, but you're essentially a shipper. So that was that internship. And my senior year, I did an internship at Saks, doing their planning and merchandising internship, which I felt like wasn't necessarily for me, but it's kind of where everyone in my school went into, like from my major, they went into merchandising.
Okay.
It's the most established area in the industry to like get into a program.
Gotcha.
After college. So that's what I ended up doing after college. I worked at TJX in merchandising, specifically an allocation analyst for TJ Maxx Kids. And then after that, I moved to Reebok and brand strategy, but fun little fact, in between those jobs, I was a field hockey coach for 3 months at a private day school, like high school near me. And that was really fun.
That's cool.
School coach. Yeah, no, it was, I recommend now with like the whole pandemic thing, it was awesome to have just kind of a 3-month break from everything then. It was a little scary, but from TJX, I moved on to brand strategy just because I thought I wanted to go into marketing and I saw this role open and I really was interested in going to Reebok. It was in the Boston area, one of the main retailers in the Boston area. And a lot of what that role described was what I've done like in scholarships and research and different things in school for various fashion companies and whatever. So I went in there as a brand strategy coordinator, which is pretty rare to have an entry level position within like a strategy team sometimes. And then from there, I wanted to move to New York and just kind of grow since I was at Reebok for a while. So that's when I got the customer strategy job at Macy's, which I thought was going to be very similar to brand strategy, but turned out to be somewhat different, but towards the end of my time, very similar.
Okay.
Which was interesting. And then I just 3 weeks ago switched jobs internally to now end up where I am. So that's awesome. A long journey.
Quite a ride. And now you mentioned a lot of big names right off the bat, even with your internships and stuff like that. So would you say that was the result of the caliber of school you went to? Or were you able to make connections? Like, how do you feel like that panned out? Because I'm sure anyone interested in going into fashion and retail like wants to be getting positions with those types of companies.
Yeah, I would definitely say, at least in the internship realm, not at all. Because, well, a couple of things. One, I always said within my Cornell peers, having the fashion degree did not give me a leg up within my peers because a lot of people didn't really know and still don't know about the Cornell fashion program. So business majors, hotel majors, we get the same internships that I would, like, no problem. They actually preferred those people sometimes within the Cornell people. And then elsewhere, because it's New York internships, there are a lot of like FIT Parsons people that do summer internships. So you're like competing with them. And then just people all over the country that just want to spend their summer in New York and they're accepting like fashion majors from whatever school that they have fashion programs at. So there was no real, like, you don't see like, oh, I go to a great school until you get to maybe strategy teams or kind of like specific areas within those within retail companies. But for internships, definitely not. For my TJX job, not really either. I think it was as I was going into like a little bit more of the business side, it helped.
Okay, very cool. And is there any I guess, silos or particular areas of interest you have within retail? So I know you mentioned earlier your first job was in kids lines. I'm sure go into like handbags and sneakers. I'm not a fashion person, so probably not the best person to speak to that.
No, so essentially when you're in retail, like a lot of people jump around to different categories, like
not silos, categories.
Yes, they're called Macy's family of businesses, but which is weird, FOBs, but for us general, plebeians, they're called categories. And I was in kids activewear doing those categories. And then I went into activewear, but I loved activewear and like sneakers because I was an athlete, but that was just kind of like a natural connection that I really enjoyed. But I also I interned at a swimwear company too. My freshman year, I did 2 internships. And that was fun. It's all different. Like I love the gowns, like I love luxury. Like it was so cool at Saks. It was contemporary. So a lot of different things. My best friend at TJX worked in home, and then she was doing luggage at a different company. People jump around categories all the time. It's just a matter of if they enjoy those categories. I had another friend who was in like infants and toddlers, and his friends would make fun of him for being in that, doing that category.
Oh.
So you can have a specialty, which sometimes helps, but it really is more only helpful for designers. So if you're like a shoe designer, you're going to stick with being a shoe designer mostly, or you're an apparel designer, a knit designer, you're probably going to stay a knit designer. So on the business side, the category that you're in doesn't really matter, but it's nice to have a passion for it.
Okay, cool. And then when you're with a specific company, do you find that rivalries develop between like the major players in that space? I only ask because I lived right next to Under Armour's headquarters for like 3.5, 4 years. And when people left to go to Nike, it was like they were cut off, like their colleagues didn't talk to them anymore, like crazy stories.
That's so funny. I would say, so in Boston, there's actually a ton of sneaker companies. There's Puma, New Balance, Reebok, Asics, the US headquarters, Converse. So cool. A ton. So people move like between those guys all the time. So it's a little bit different. I would say there was like somewhat of an internal rivalry at Reebok when Adidas owned them, which was during my whole time there. Now they don't, where it was always like, oh, is Adidas, you had to work together with them because it was the parent company, but at the same time also like
mergers and acquisitions can be very weird.
Yeah. Also like slightly competitive, I guess, in that way. But overall, I wouldn't say so. Where you're always looking to competitors about what they're doing and making sure that, you're doing either the same things or better, new, innovative things. Always people that you're looking at, but not as much, I guess, of a crazy competitive nature.
Okay, I was just wondering.
That's funny though, the Under Armour.
Yeah, not to call them out or anything like that. I'm wearing Under Armour shorts right now, so
yeah. Well, you couldn't wear like any sort of like, you had to wear Reebok shoes to the office. You couldn't wear other brands.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Awesome. So in your current role, I won't go into too much since it's very fresh. But in your latest customer strategy, brand strategy-esque roles, what would you say like a day or a week in your life was like, meeting wise, in the office, remote, talking to people, working solo, stuff like that?
Customer strategy area is pretty new because businesses are having more of a customer first mindset, meaning they're looking at their data in a very much more in a microscopic type of way of like, what are the customer behaviors? How can I increase the customer's lifetime value? What are the customer metrics that are going to get me there? How can we amplify or create a loyalty program that gets these people more loyal to the brand, doing these next best action behaviors like downloading the app, which makes them buy more, etc. So customer strategy, like a day essentially would be thinking about like, how are we thinking about reporting about like these customer metrics to like the world? What are other competitors doing? Other days, you know, it's like, okay, what are different strategies across marketing that we're doing to onboard customers, or essentially get a customer that purchased once to purchase a second time? So you have a lot of first purchase or one-time purchasers. So what is going to get them, whether it's an email trigger, or some sort of push notification, how are we getting them to get to a second purchase? And then similarly, customers that have just, you know, stopped shopping at Macy's maybe for the last 2 years, how are we getting them to come back to Macy's? What are the things that we can offer them? What are, strategies we can employ? And then how do you manage and amplify, scale those strategies and test them? So a big testing arm too was created, like in my time on my team, about making sure we're testing and personalizing a lot of the different content that we're giving to the different customers that are within different points of their relationship with Macy's. So that was like a day, I mean, more of a high level view of like what a week was like, but I'd say like talking to those teams, talking to the email team about how, you know, they're creating audiences, and media team, how they're creating audiences around these different customer states of the relationship with Macy's. How are we measuring that from a KPI standpoint? And then in a completely different note, how are we using our brand platform to activate across the customer journey? So how are we using our brand platform, which was now just released, Own Your Style? So how are we helping our customer express their style, whether it's an inspiration post from a style crew member, or from like all the way at the end of the journey when they're receiving a delivery, or trying to share their product post-purchase. How are we doing that as well? So can integrate it all throughout the journey. That was really customer strategy. I worked a lot on that project.
Yeah.
Applying Own Your Style across the whole business.
Yeah, I think that was a really fantastic explanation, and like the amount of time that it took to get to that point of that story you put together there, I think just drives home the point that a lot of people don't know marketing is like so much more complex than like a pretty picture on Instagram.
Yes.
And I feel like with the rise of like TikTok and stuff like that, people make it look easy because they're good at it, but it doesn't mean that it's easy.
Yes, 100%. That goes viral for a reason, and then brands, you know, plan for months about what that post looks like, and that post is part of a larger strategy that's part of a larger strategy.
Yeah, awesome. Given the state of the world, a lot of people are going back to offices. Some people are doing hybrid, some people are doing remote. What do you think the next few years are going to look like for like the retail brand strategy space?
For people in business in retail, I don't see. Most of the companies that I know of are doing a hybrid structure. Mm-hmm. So going to the office maybe a few times a week and being here. For me personally, I don't have to go in for now at all, or my team. It's really a team by team basis. But like a lot of merchandising folks have to go into the office because they have to see the product, they have to meet with vendors, or they have to meet with brands if they're a department store, or if you're a buyer on the other side, you also have to meet and talk about and feel all the different fabrics, all those kinds of things. So it really depends what sector of the industry you're in, to whether you're in the office or not. I'd say like the business side, generally you don't have to be in the office.
Okay, cool. And then wrapping things up a little bit, do you have any words of wisdom, advice for people who might be high school students, college students looking to get into this space?
Yeah, I would say one, like the internships, it really helps to try out everything. You think, like Bridget was saying, like you think you know, like you were saying, you think you know all the different areas of the fashion industry, or like, oh, it's just design and it's just marketing, but it's really not. There are just so many different facets, like every other company that you can go into. So I really encourage students to look into and intern in all those different areas that they're interested in. And then also like do what you can at your college. I was really involved in, similarly like to what you're doing, talking to different people, exploring what they did. I was in a careers in the fashion industry club, and created a network from my like college years up until now, and like increased it. And I think that's what you really have to start doing as soon as you can, is just starting to get to know people that are in the industry and learn about their experience. Because the fashion industry can be a small world sometimes, and you never know when that other person will pop up or come back to your own company or want you to work for them, which has happened to me, which is really exciting after being an intern. So yeah, I definitely would say 1, try a lot. 2, make sure you're nice to everyone that you meet. And 3, also don't expect the first job to be the most amazing job. I know not just in retail, but a lot of friends have a huge problem, I guess, adjusting from the college life to the real world, because there's just so many different things that you have to deal with at once as a real adult. And being a part of something that you're passionate about, you're really excited to do it, like retail, but at the same time, when you don't do it right, it's really upsetting and it can really impact you and your mental health. So really just like keep an eye on yourself and don't get too down if it's not the right opportunity right away, because things will evolve.
That was a super good ending note. So thank you. Thank you for your time, Nicole. And I'm sure this is going to help or inspire someone. So thanks for your time.
I'm glad.